Hi guys, and welcome to my full review of the Huawei MediaPad M2 8.0. In terms of price, it is priced somewhere in between a budget tablet and a premium tablet. In terms of specs though, we get a quite high-end package, really beautiful design, but where in the end it actually fits, budget or premium, we will see during my full review. So let's start off with the design and build quality. Size comparison first. Here is another 8.0 inch, as you can see, pretty much the same width, a little bit taller and a little bit thicker, but still quite compact in my opinion compared to something like maybe the iPad Air 2. As you can see, of course it is quite a bit smaller, of course also thicker, but that's no issue. I would say a few people did complain about the bezels. Here's my take on it. They said they were too big, and I'm not quite sure why, because they thought finally we get an edge-to-edge design, but as you can see here, I need a little bit of room to hold on to. Sure, if I hold it like this, it would work without any bezels, but if I use it here in portrait, I just need a little bit of bezel, and this little bit definitely isn't too much in my opinion. And if you have it like this in landscape, you just need a little bit more to hold on to, and I think the bezels are sized pretty much perfectly. No complaints here at all. In terms of thickness, also quite okay, because I'm okay with a little bit of a bigger device if I can get a little bit more battery. So all has been done here, very nice. So compact design, also very nice build material. The aluminum feels really great. It is maybe sometimes a little bit slippery, but the one thing that I have an issue is the build quality itself, because maybe you can hear this now. So it does just creak and squeak quite a lot, even in normal use. So of course, if you bend it all the time, you will hear it more often, but even sometimes if I just pick it up or use it just normally, it does squeak a little bit, and this is a little bit of a missed opportunity to make it go full premium. So it still feels very premium in terms of materials, design and everything else, but this squeaking head could have been done better. But still, let's go to the other things. The buttons are really nicely done. Not much you can do here better. Not really super clicky, but very satisfying clicky and tactile feedback. So a little bit of click is there, but more the tactile feedback, which is nice. Also the placement you can really easily feel, because as you can see, there is like some kind of cutout for the power button, easily to distinguish, because we also have a little bit of texture here, as we do have on the whole side. So this little bit of a riffled rim has been done nice, gives you the grip you need. Maybe it doesn't particularly feel great, but still. On the right side we have also a SD card slot hidden under this flap, which is quite nicely hidden because you really don't see it. It doesn't obtrude the design itself. The buttons have been done nice. Here we have the micro USB at the top with one of the two speakers, the headphone jack. On the left side there is nothing, and on the bottom we can see a microphone and the second speaker. I will get to the speakers a little bit later. Here on the back we have the back-facing camera with flash, and here's the one at the front. I'm not gonna talk about the camera though, because this is something I usually just don't do. So in terms of design and build, it has been done really nice. It feels and looks really beautiful. The belts are nice in my opinion, buttons and all this has been done nice. Only the build quality itself, the substantial feel, could have been done maybe a little bit better. Okay, let's get to the display. We have an 8.0 inch display with a resolution of 1920 by 1200. So it's maybe not super high res, but I don't have an issue with that at all, because it is really sharp. Just for example, compared to the Lenovo, it is noticeably sharper, even though it has the same resolution. So really nicely done. The great thing about the white, we have color temperature control in the settings, so we have a slider to make it cold and wider. I set it a little bit colder because I prefer it that way, and that's the one thing that should be the default on Android, because everyone can get his that he wants. And actually, if you see maybe the picture here on the video, in reality it looks better, the white. Here on the video it looks a little bit colder. The white is great. The blacks are very uniform. There is no light bleed at all, but it could have maybe been a little bit deeper, because sometimes when I watch a movie, it just is a little bit of backlight to see through. Not that it's backlight bleeding, but it could have been deeper. Colors are really nicely done. Very vibrant and vivid, very punchy. But in videos a little bit oversaturated, especially if I checked my own videos, the colors were just a little bit too much. But it is a really pleasurable too much, because if you watch videos and if you watch pictures, it is really nice to look at viewing angles as well. As you can see here, quite solid. On the camera it always looks a little bit worse, because in normal use, no complaints here at all. It is a very bright display, and I used it at about 35-40% usually at home. but it is not the very brightest display. So maybe sunlight with all this glare, as you can see, it will be a little bit harder, but it is indoors a very, very bright display. So let's get to the sound. And I want to just show you one more thing, because in the settings we have an option that is called SVS, which is a little bit of an enhancer, but maybe you can see the difference. I will talk about it later. Okay, that's it for the demo. What about the sound now? So the placement in theory looks quite good because it is in the middle on the side, so side firing, and the stereo effect is really nice. But as you maybe saw on my demo, I, for example, in playing games did block it all the time, because this is exactly where I have my hands. So if they would have put it maybe somewhere like here, it would have been great, because no matter how you hold it, you will always block it. That is the one issue. If you have it in free air, or for example like here on a stand, the sound is absolutely great because it is very, very loud, and also quite a nice one because we have a little bit of bass. The mids are very solid, especially voices and all that. Also very clear and natural highs. And about the SVS or SWS option, what it does is it adds a little bit of depth, but therefore the sound feels a little bit more narrow and slightly less clear. So I personally prefer without SWS because it just sounded more natural, it sounded more clear, and also a little bit of a wider soundstage. But the sound overall is really, really great, especially for media files. It can even compete with something like a laptop in most cases. It's just the placement for games or something like that, if you hold it like this in the hand, where you will have a little bit of issues because you will run into blocking. Okay, let's go into the performance now. Let's check that. In the browser, I have to say one thing: the performance is absolutely brilliant. Great loading times, super smooth performance, as you can see here, no problems, there are no lag or stutter. So the browsing experience is absolutely top notch, and in apps like, for example, Phoenix here, as you can see, still very, very smooth, not quite flagship level smooth, but pretty much lag free most of the time. Here for Palaver, as you can see once again, there is a little bit of lag. It's really not a whole lot. It's just not super smooth, but still totally fine, no problems at all. Also loading times are good. So the scrolling here, as well as you can see, is on a really high level. And in apps, I would say at least 90% of a flagship. As you can see, Google Plus though does stutter a little bit more often. As you can see, there is more lag while scrolling. If you don't scroll too fast, it's less noticeable. And overall, totally fine. As for the multitasking, we have 2 GB of RAM, and it works out as you would expect it from 2 GB of RAM. There is not too much reloading visible, and in normal tablet use, I didn't run into any issues. It was performing all the time really, really fine. So actually one of the better 2 GB devices. Let's check a game here, and I will just take Riptide as always because of the faster loading times. In terms of gaming, it is on a very good, just not great level, but I don't have any issues. I can play games at all times absolutely issue free. The frame rates aren't maybe as high as on a flagship and maybe not as consistent, but for the gaming or for a good pleasurable gaming experience, it is totally fine, and you can see that here. Very, very smooth. Really rare lag. Of course, if there's a lot going on the screen, I noticed a little bit more of lag. And for example, in Riptide, I had, as you can maybe see, a little bit of issues triggering my stunts. So even though the display is really responsive and precise, for some reason within this game, I had a little bit of trouble accessing my things here. But once again, performance, very, very solid, not quite the highest flagship level. I would say 80-85% of that, but still overall convincing at all times. Let's go to the battery then. 30% No, I mean, sorry, 30 minutes of charging gets you to 25%, and after 3 hours, about 3 hours, maybe slightly less, you are fully charged. So that's not a great value, but pretty much the average these days on these kind of tablets. So I'm not disappointed, everything is still fine. So let's go into the battery life now and see what we've got here. Over the course of 1 day and 10 hours, I got about 5 hours and 40. Here once again, 1.5 days with 540 once again. Here 5 hours with about 2 days. Here we can see 2 hours, but that was with just 33% of use. And the last one, once again, 5 hours over the course of 2.5 days. So what I got in my normal use with about 45% of brightness, over the course of 1 day I would see 6 hours possible, and over the course of 2 or more days I would say 5 hours should be still okay, because the standby drain is at about 0.5% an hour, which is good for a phone, but for a tablet with a battery this big it could have been better. So I would maybe wish for a third percent per hour or even less, just to get more stamina. Because if you use this device and are okay with charging it every 2 or 3 days, 5 hours should be fine. If you want it to hold more, because you maybe use it like 1 hour a day and for the whole week, then it could be a little bit tighter, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Okay, let's check the software here. We are running Android 5.1.1. I can show you this real quick with the EMUI 3.1. Here we can see it, 5.1.1, 2 GB of RAM and all that. In terms of the design, it's not my first choice, but we have a few nice additions, as you can see here in the lock screen, a few shortcuts and also a few quick settings and all that. We have what is quite nice, quick pull down to usually be able to, okay, maybe this doesn't seem to work if you have a notification. So if you have a notification, quick pull down doesn't work, as you can see here. Otherwise it does. No, it actually doesn't. As you can see, you can swipe between though. So the look of the quick settings is there. You can customize them, not really delete them, but at least change the order. In terms of settings, as you can see here, it maybe at first glance doesn't look like stock Android, but it pretty much mostly behaves like that. You have options like a little bit of customization for the navigation bar. You have dual screen, as you can see here. It's not reported in this app. Let's go into this. If you either long press the recent apps button or just do, we can see here, a swipe up. So let's try this, swipe up, and you can also usually do dual screen. Then the issue, as on all the tablets recently that have dual view, is that not all apps are supported. As you can see, all the supported apps are these here. That's it. So not a huge choice, but at least you can browse maybe Google Plus and the browser, or watch YouTube, all that at the same time. The performance gets a little bit of a hit, but it's still usable at all times because the performance overall is still good. So in terms of software, not my first choice in terms of design UI, but in terms of what it does, it works out quite nice. We don't have on drawback, it's a little bit of a drawback, but you can just install Nova Launcher or maybe the Google Now Launcher, and it will still provide a very nice experience. So no real complaints here. It is solid, it does what it has to do, just a little bit different that you would maybe like to, but on a tablet I'm totally fine with that. So let's get to the recap. So if you haven't watched the detailed part, no problem, here's the recap. In terms of design and build, not really much to complain. It has been done on a really high level because it looks beautiful, it feels great in the hand, button placement and all that has been done really good. It's just that slightly creaky feel that did bug me a little bit after all. In terms of the display, I'm really satisfied because it is really sharp, slightly oversaturated, but therefore really nice color balance and all that. Color temperature control, good blacks, solid viewing angles. So it has been done really great, and it is one of the best 1080p displays on the market still for a tablet with this price. In terms of the sound, absolutely great as long as you don't block it, because very loud, very rich, and it sounded just very natural. Just for playing games it could be a little bit of an issue if you can't really hold it properly. I didn't manage, even if blocked games sounded good, but just not as great as the usual sound of the speakers is anyways. In terms of the performance, also on a really high level, just not quite great. Performance within apps and in the browser mostly very smooth, very really fast and responsive. Just a few apps had a little bit of lag here and there, also especially Google Plus, but still on a very high level, no complaints here for a tablet of this price range. Still okay. I would have wished for a little bit less lag though. Gaming performance was solid. I could play all the games really nicely, just not on the highest level after all, because a little bit less frames and a little bit more slowdowns, but as I said, on a very high level after all. In terms of battery life, the charging pretty much average, and the battery life definitely above average, with about 5 hours of multi-day use and at least 6 hours with one-day use. I'm totally fine, because I use the brightness of 45%, and this display gets bright really early, so you can get even lower with that if you want more, but 6 hours of battery life is absolutely fine with me. The software, okay, the UI is a little bit of a matter of taste. You have to get used to it for a while, but on a tablet I definitely don't mind it as much as on a phone, because I do a little bit different things, not so much different stuff, but therefore the basics, so browsing, watching YouTube, social media and all that, and here the UI doesn't really obstruct me so much, so it is still fine, no problems here at all. So would I recommend it? I can tell you so much. Here it costs about 270 euros, which is still a very nice price, very affordable, and definitely worth what you pay for. There are different alternatives. Of course, there is the Nvidia Shield tablet, which is better for gaming and so on. I don't think the build quality can compete with this. And there is also the Dell Venue 8 708040, which I think is the overall slightly better device, because better performance, better battery life. Speaker was louder and sounded better, but was also only on one side, so just keep that in mind. The software was more stock, but in general it is the more expensive device. It was here on sale for about 2 times for about 250, which was a great deal, absolutely great offer, and then I would prefer the Dell Venue, but usually that one costs over 300, well above over 300, and then this is a definitely well alternative if you want maybe something that feels still very premium, not as great as the Dell. And then there's also a cheaper alternative, the Lenovo Tab S8, definitely a little worse in everything. The performance was nice, the display was nice, sound was okay, battery life was way weaker, maybe like half of this. But if you want to save a lot of money, because you can get this for around 150. So if you want to save the money, this is good. If you want to pay a little bit more, but just not quite premium level, this is definitely a good alternative, because the overall experience was very nice, not really any complaints, because the sound is really great, display is really great, performance was fine, and for what I usually do on a tablet, this did satisfy all my needs, and that is all I have to say. You know all the pros, you know all the cons. If you have any further questions, leave them down below. If you like this review, please give it a thumbs up, reshare it, do whatever you want to. I would appreciate it though. Unless I have forgotten anything, let me know in the comments, because I think I covered pretty much everything. So I wish you a nice day. Until next time, bye.